Who in NSUK are going to be the planners of education in the future, or the planners of the new inner cities? Have any of you thought of being a planner? Are any of you planners? Don't know, hold your hands up at once. Do any of you like planning? Think about it. What field, if you find planning interesting and you feel you have a natural ability to planning, think about what field you can put your abilities to good use, together with the power of the gods. This is the future of Kosen Rufu. From now, this is the purpose, if you like, of the new century group, that we should all broaden our minds and realize that we have a role, a social role and function to play based on the Gehonzen, as well as our own personal, individual human revolutions. In a sense, you could say our own individual human revolution is of not so much value if it's not being reflected around us to everything. So please do consider it. All of you, please consider, where does my real interest, where do I seem to have this natural ability? No great rush, but over the next 2 or 3 years, you should really begin to see the way you'd like to go. So Toynbee says himself, after senseis explain the law of life, Toynbee says the compassion that is evoked by the eye of the law seems to me to be the antidote for the dehumanizing effect of science. In other words, we want more scientists practicing to the gods, or we want more scientists who, even if they won't practice, hear about Buddhist principles and begin to see that it might be worthwhile considering that principle when they're carrying out their research. Most important of all, of course, that we need more scientists who are actually practicing and applying the teachings of Nichiren Daishonin to everything. So this is Kosen Rufu. It's exceedingly exciting, isn't it? Can you imagine when you all come together in 20 years' time, which I sincerely hope we will, and more frequently than that, too. But can you imagine how interesting it will be to see where you all are at that point in time? Of course, everyone will know where you are at so far as the NSUK organization is concerned, but where you all are in a social sense. Fantastic. And even more exciting that this is happening in every country of the world, isn't it? Gradually, this movement outward into society, just on an individual level, people, it's natural. Not working themselves up into a state, but just naturally expressing the Gehonzen in their lives, in everything they do and say every day. And that has an effect on all sorts of other people. Spreads outwards. It's really marvelous, isn't it? There's nothing more natural than that in the world. There's never been such an amazing human movement. So with that thought in your minds, one quick question to answer. It won't take me a moment. Can you read it?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was from Peter Blackwell. He posed this question: If it is at all possible, is it at all possible to tell me? I'd very much like to know how you think the first NSUK school (brackets secondary age range) will come into being. What processes do you think will be involved? Who will make what decisions, etc.? Will it be, as you suggested today, that a group of teachers would decide to take this upon themselves? Or will Sensei perhaps suggest the time and place, etc.? Thanks very much.
I think this question was actually posed after the very first period. So if it is at all possible to tell me, I'd very much like to know how you think the first NSUK school will come into being. Well, first of all, I have absolutely no doubt that we shall see our own schools at all levels in due course. How it will come into being depends upon the Nichiren of people in NSUK. That is how it will come into being. So, of course, like all things in Buddhism, there is a time in the rhythm of Kosen Rufu when it is right to found our first school. But equally, as you know, through Nichiren, we can hasten the time. So that's what it depends on. Nothing else but that. The right time. Because, of course, if there is a school, it must be supported by the daimoku of the members, and, of course, by the members in terms of sending pupils to it and raising funds for it and so on. So the time is very important. Who will make what decision? I've not got the slightest idea. Certainly, I'm sure Sensei will play his part strongly out of all his experience of founding the Soka schools in Japan of the way best to do it. My own belief at this moment, but it could easily change, is that it's best to begin at even perhaps the kindergarten level in the smallest way and grow and develop from there through primary, secondary, and so on. So it is not that a group of teachers would decide to take this upon themselves. No. Of course, the teachers, I hope, will be the strongest in their ichiren, the education group. But it's more than that. Members of NSUK as a whole, or certainly a good proportion of them, must desire it. Maybe they don't necessarily all desire it consciously, but in their lives, the moment such a suggestion is made, wow, yes, that's just what I want. So, in other words, we must be ready to do it. We must have the strength of faith and, of course, the material power to be able to do such a thing. Because, like all things, it must be a huge success. Does that answer? No, it would be funded by our funds. Yes, of course. I hope not. I would imagine that most likely we would decide on a proportion of members' children and a proportion of non-members. So probably the members' children would be the higher proportion. No, that's right. It's open to others. Yeah, probably. Would it? Oh, yeah, I'd be disappointed if it didn't. The first one, I really would. I mean that. Yeah, I would really hope to see the first one within 5 years. Okay? Well, I think that's something we'd have to discuss deeply. But whatever happens, of course, if we base the dignity of life as its foundation principle or founding principle, then those who may be disabled, will be considered, and the best way to handle life for them as well. Mm. Mm. Right. Yes. 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 Why don't you just jot down a few points on a bit of paper on that subject and let me have it, could you? It's just as well for me to get my thinking right, too. Thank you very much. We have, yes. Two. That's an interesting question. I don't think so. I think the important point, especially for us who practice the Gonzen, is that we can see something that is evil. Our perception is so clear that we would decide, well, that's enough of that book, and I'm certainly not going to recommend that book to others. Hmm? Is that what you mean? Mm, mm, yes, yes, yes. I mean, I think that's why I answered in that way. We should be able to judge whether I should go on and finish this book from beginning to end. But we should be strong enough, of course, to be able to do that without affecting us in some way. Oh, yes. Well, certainly so far as education is concerned, I don't know whether Rob would agree, but certainly so far as education is concerned, nothing should be taught to the children unless it's valuable. Nothing that is just negative should ever be taught to children. Okay, something can be negative in its outset, but it must show the way it can be turned into something valuable. I think that's very important. And Sensor somewhere in here also says the same thing, I think. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Can everyone hear? Mm. 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 That could be so. I mean, but I think it only applies usually to the early days of people's practice. And some people can get quite rapturous, and think that just because they're chanting the Gonzen, everything is going to go smoothly. But usually the Gonzen quickly teaches them that isn't so. So, one way or another, I think people learn in the end. But as to expanding and improving one's mind, yes, maybe you're right. Maybe that message doesn't get around enough. So, uh, you set the example, Robert. Mm. Yes, of course it is. Yes. But I understand Robert's question. What he meant was that people are sort of some people sit back and think, well, just because I'm chanting, everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And also tend to sort of be in a state of euphoria and not to worry about anything going on around them.
So when people have these concepts,
well, I would remind them from now on of that saying in the poem, reason lies between the spur and the bridle. They'd better spur themselves a bit. Okay, we'd better stop. Yes, one more.
I've always been interested in particular types of books. Certain type of book that is, I've enjoyed reading and I still find that today, and when I pick up things like, if I pick up one, so in fact, I'm specializing in being those type of things.
Yes.
So,
yes. Well, what I think is, if you're really seeking to read some other type of book, if you're really seeking it, and if you ask the Gonzen, you'll find it. It may not be War and Peace. I mean, please don't think I'm suggesting everyone should read War and Peace immediately or anything like that. But there is another type of book, in addition to that one that you've had a fixation on for a long time. There is another type of book. You'll find it if you desire to do so. So mention it to the Gonzen. I must have the wisdom to find it. I don't want to be stuck with this then. All right. Yes, Robin. Desire for learning. Yes. Mm. 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 But I think your desire is becoming stronger and stronger. That's why you asked the question. And that's why you're beginning to be a bit agonized. So really, Robin, it is growing. So please hasten it. Hmm? I mean, in the end, you're going to get so desperate. Right. So it's something you've got to break through, isn't it? I'm glad to hear you're desperate. Actually, we talked about this, and I gave you the answer. It's still the same. Where you find yourself trapped like that, there is the way. You've got to believe that. If you don't, then you're slandering the power of the gods. It's just a doubt. Wow, I'm really sorry, Gon. When it comes down to it, what it all amounts to is that I don't believe the Gonzen exists in me and that there's the power there to pass through this stupid thing. That's where you've got to read. I'm sure you're getting very near. It really comes to that. This is me. I'm tying myself down like this. I'm the one. I'm so sorry. God, what a fool I am. What am I doing sitting here saying I can't do it? This Gonzen's the most powerful thing in the universe. Something at some point will, if you really acknowledge this fate to the gods, as you're chanting Daimoku, deeper and deeper and deeper, then there's nothing between you and the gods after that. You really start to soar. It's just acknowledging your slander to the gods as you chant Daimoku, deeply and sincerely and really. Okay, Robin, all this. Okay, thank you very much indeed.